Hi guys, and welcome to this little video of mine, which is comparing the MOONDROP Chu to the MOONDROP Jiu to the MOONDROP Chu 2. I thought it would make sense to do this, not so much as to pick a winner at the end, although I will say which is my favorite, but more to actually try and show that each one of them has got a specific segment that it's trying to target. Okay, they all follow the MOONDROP VDSF signature, which is very much a Harman style of tuning, and the biggest difference being the leanness, or how much bass is then present. That's in essence the biggest difference, which will then ultimately make the Chu 2 sound more V-shaped by comparison to the other two. Anyway, the MOONDROP Chu launched almost over a year and a half ago now. It came at a time where what was available in the market at that segment of $20 was not so much. There wasn't any maturely tuned IEMs. You just had the normal slap an a shell with a driver together and hope for the best. Yes, there were the occasional exceptions to the rule. I mean, I've always been a very big fan of the CCA, the CRA, the original one. I've always thought it was a very nicely tuned IEM. But under $20, you really didn't have anything that stood out. Okay, then you had a few other options from KZ that eventually came out, but they were all very much always the same thing. Always different flavors of V-shaped signature, which doesn't offend me. I like it, and at least they were well done. This offered then that VDSF MOONDROP Aria, MOONDROP KXXS, MOONDROP Kato style of tuning at under $20 in a nicely built IEM with a beautiful shell. This one has been modified to have a detachable cable, but actually here's the stock one. Here's one stock one with a stock cable. Okay, and that the fact that it had the fixed cable was probably the only real gripe that many people had, because you could have other IEMs at the same price with a detachable cable. Why didn't MOONDROP do it? Anyway, actually the latest MOONDROP, the Chu 2, it does have a detachable cable, so it could be done. Anyway, it was a nicely built IEM with a nice good weight to it. It fit nicely, played very nicely, although it did have its weaknesses. The main weakness was that it was a little bit too lean on the bass, which for those of us that appreciate a very detailed mid-range and like to listen to stuff which isn't very, or genres which isn't very bass heavy, it was perfect. It was it was pure bliss. It was amazing. You couldn't really fault it. You can't really truly fault it. That's the reality. There's when you consider that it costs $19, what sort of faults are you going to put? Oh, because the soundstage isn't what let's be coherent here. So it was nicely tuned, fantastic mids, fantastic highs, a little bit on the harsh side when pushed a little bit. The bass was a little bit on the lean side, but overall it presented a nice sound. It was easy to listen to. It wouldn't satisfy the bass heads, we already know that, but it was easy to listen to, and it was acceptable in terms of its technical capabilities, and was it. There was nothing else available. You only afterwards got the 7Hz 0, which basically was the same driver, slightly different tuning. It was they very much traded blows, because it was basically the same flavor. All right, that was that. Then already this year we got the Jiu, which is basically the MOONDROP, the Chu, as you can see, the shell, the driver, everything's the same. But what it has different is it has in the connection of the the USB connection, there's a DAC chip incorporated. And by having a DSP incorporated into the equation, basically, yes, you were limited to that DSP. You can't connect it out you can't use it without that DSP. But that DSP conferred then some adjustments to the tuning, and although not radically different, okay, the reality is that it did kind of fix a little bit the issues that you had here, which was the bass was a little bit thicker, and it cleaned up the treble somehow. So overall, it gave us a stock sound that was slightly superior to the shoe, the same kind of flavor, but slightly superior because it was a little bit more polished, but limited by the fact that you were stuck with that. That was it. This was around $23, so a little bit more expensive. The two worth mentioning is that the shoe does actually benefit from having a little bit more power. Given to it. If you give it just a phone, it's one thing, but if you connect a little dongle to it, you will be surprised by how nicely it actually does behave. It actually does help clean up and tighten up things a lot. So it is something that I would recommend doing. So yeah, this was a good solid option for those that didn't have the extra money to buy a dongle, or maybe perhaps had a phone that left something to be desired in terms of its sonic capabilities. So that was the crowd that was satisfied, and they got that mature tuning with this. That's it. Now recently we received the Chu 2. Basically the shell is very similar. The biggest difference now here has been an aluminum magnesium driver as compared to the previous two generations. Well, not generations, but the previous two models, and a tuning which now has given a significant emphasis on the bass. That emphasis, like as I mentioned earlier, has been, in my opinion, well done. They've struck a good balance. Yes, I will say that ultimately, if all you listen to is a lot of vocal centric stuff, this would edge out slightly the Chu 2. They will, but they will also do that at the cost of sounding more clinical, while this gives that little extra more realism. So in terms of timbre and tonality, for me, this one is the most correct one. That's for me, okay? The other thing that you do get with the Chu 2 is a greater versatility in terms of genres. You can now play some serious EDM here, and it'll jam. It'll do its thing. So EDM, hip hop, rock as well. They will sound way more satisfying than what they did on the previous two models. So, like I said, this is not so much which is the best, which is the worst. They are tailored for different crowds of people. This is for that person that wants to have, on a budget, wants to have a highly detailed, highly capable sound in terms of the mids, vocals. Okay, perfect. That's it, and doesn't worry too much about if the bass is lean. This is for that for a person that also wants kind of the same sound, but that doesn't have the ability to perhaps afford a DAC, or has a phone which is a little bit more rudimentary, and so by having the incorporated DSP, it resolves that problem. And the DSP has also given us that little extra polished upness in that. That was not really very good English, but anyway, it has polished up the sound slightly, where this one was a little bit leaner. This one is just that little smidge extra, so it would perhaps be a little bit more versatile. And the $23, it was more than adequate. The Chu 2 is for those people that want something more versatile in terms of genres that you can play. It will play basically anything. It will be way more satisfying, like I said, with genres which are bass heavy. It costs $17, so it's actually the cheapest of them. I got all of them, by the way, from HIFIGO. So this would be, I don't want to, kind of say this, but this would be for the bass heads, let's put it that way. So this is for the bass heads, this is for the treble heads or the mid heads, and this is for the in-betweens to a certain extent, although it doesn't have the same bass capability as the Chu 2. And that's it, guys. I mean, I thought it would be interesting just to make this small video explaining this and helping you guys to maybe make a more informed decision. All right. Anyway, guys, as always, like and subscribe. Any questions you might have, please feel free to ask, and I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. All right. Take care now. Bye-bye.